Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're cutting straight to it, focusing on the really, really complex situation in Gaza. There's this ceasefire now. Our goal here is simple: to take all the reports, the analysis we've got right up to October 12th, 2025, and just, well, boil down, give you the essential facts, the implications. We're looking at this major shift, from intense fighting to, well, what feels like a very conditional pause, a fragile truce. All our sources, they paint a pretty consistent picture. Huge relief, obviously, but mixed with just unbelievable devastation. And politically, so much uncertainty. It's like this moment of hope, but it's overshadowed by this massive crisis. Okay, so let's try and unpack the framework of this thing.
Yeah, and I think the first thing to grasp for you listening is that this isn't some final peace agreement, not at all. It's more like a carefully managed pause. Our sources are really clear on this. The political mistrust, it's incredibly high.
Yeah.
Still there, bubbling under the surface. So the truce itself, the way it's structured, it's almost designed around that mistrust.
Okay, let's get into the mechanics then. Agreed by Israel and Hamas, and it officially kicked in. When was it? Just recently.
October 10th, 2025?
Yeah, just a few days ago, right? October 10th. And that date's important, isn't it? It sets the clock ticking for everything else.
Exactly. And if you link that date to the bigger picture, you see how precarious this all is. This truce, it's only phase one of a much larger, pretty ambitious 20-point peace plan. The U.S. proposed it, they're facilitating. And analysts we're reading suggest this whole phased approach, start small, de-escalate first. It's a deliberate try, an attempt to build some confidence where, frankly, there isn't much right now.
So phase one goals are more tactical then. Small wins to stop it all falling apart immediately.
Yeah.
What does that phase actually demand?
Two really crucial things right away. First, a partial Israeli troop withdrawal, not total, partial, from some of the densely populated areas. And second, a very tightly managed process for exchanging hostages and prisoners.
Partial withdrawal. That word partial feels important.
It is. The sources really hammer this home. Israel keeps control of strategic security corridors. That's part of the plan, this phased idea. And analysts see that specific point as, well, a constant source of tension. It keeps military leverage on the table even while pulling back troops, technically.
Okay, so a conditional pause, a partial withdrawal. What's that actually mean for the civilians, the thousands displaced trying to go back?
Yeah.
Because the reports say they're returning, but not really to homes, more like neighborhoods in complete ruin.
Yeah, it's harrowing when you read the descriptions. People are literally digging through rubble, not just for things they own, but trying to see if anything's left. And that partial withdrawal aspect, it means even as they return, there's still this atmosphere of surveillance control in those strategic zones. So it really undermines any feeling of a safe return or starting to rebuild immediately. That ambiguity, it's kind of baked into the deal itself.
Okay, shifting from that security framework, which is clearly conditional, to just basic survival needs, the aid effort. That seems to have ramped up. The ceasefire allowed for that, right?
Yeah.
Aid convoys getting into Gaza at an accelerated pace. Have the gates opened up a bit?
The volume is, it's unprecedented in recent times, definitely. We're talking hundreds of trucks, mostly from Egypt, bringing in food, medicine, shelter materials, the basics. And the UN's efforts are massive. They're prepping hundreds of thousands of tons of aid. So, on paper, looks like a logistical success.
Yeah, it sounds like a success. If all that aid is flowing in, surely the crisis should be easing quickly. Or are the sources saying something else? Is this huge volume of aid, is it actually not hitting the mark on the ground?
That's exactly the paradox the sources are highlighting. The success of the aid getting across the border, it's completely deceptive if you measure success by distribution. UN relief teams, they're hitting wall after wall. It's a huge bottleneck inside Gaza.
A bottleneck. Okay, tell us more. Is it just not enough people to distribute it, or something deeper?
It's the sheer physical devastation. That translates directly into a logistical nightmare. The sources point this out again and again. Key internal infrastructure, utterly destroyed. We mean main roads, smaller access roads, even places to store the aid locally, many are just gone. So this massive amount of aid gets in, but then it gets stuck near the borders, because getting it to several critical areas inside Gaza is described as nearly impossible.
Wow. So aid arrives, but the collapsed infrastructure stops it getting to the people who desperately need it. Well, that sets up the really difficult part of this discussion, doesn't it? The actual human cost and the physical cost.
Yeah, this is where we have to look beyond the agreement itself at the long-term damage. And the scale of loss is just Staggering. Our sources, they're using official figures compiled by Reuters. The death toll since the conflict started has gone past 67,000
Now,
Palestinians.
67,000.
Yeah.
It's hard to even comprehend that number.
Yeah.
And beyond the lives lost, the physical destruction you mentioned, the thing causing the bottleneck, can you give us more detail on that?
The numbers are just relentless. Sources say 193,000 buildings damaged or totally destroyed. Now, just think about what that means. 193,000 buildings. It's not just houses. That figure includes schools, hospitals, clinics, shelters people were told were safe. The actual fabric of civil society. It's been decimated. So even with aid now sort of trickling past those bottlenecks, the humanitarian crisis is still profoundly dire. That's the word used. And this destruction leads to specific, really intense health crises. Beyond the immediate deaths from fighting, sources are highlighting dozens of confirmed deaths now just from malnutrition, especially among the most vulnerable.
Malnutrition deaths. That points to a structural crisis, doesn't it? Something that's going to last much longer than the fighting itself. Is there more detail on who's most vulnerable?
Yes, the data specifically calls out risks to mothers and children. It says more than 60% of pregnant women are facing severe food insecurity. Think about that. That's a potential generational health disaster. It affects birth weights, maternal health, the long-term recovery of the population. It really shows how the scale of destruction is creating the slow burn catastrophe even after the bombs have stopped for now.
Which brings us perfectly to that huge looming question, the political vacuum. Analysts are warning this ceasefire is fragile. And it seems like it's fragile precisely because you have this total devastation meeting this completely unsolved political question. Who on earth is going to govern this ruin?
Exactly. That's the central tension. That's what could easily shatter this truce, the future governance of Gaza. Our sources basically lay out two main paths being discussed, both really difficult. One is that Hamas somehow keeps political and administrative control, despite everything. The other is that authority gets handed over to some kind of transitional administration.
Transitional administration. What could that actually mean based on the sources? That term feels very vague. Could mean anything from occupation to, I don't know, technocrats.
Yeah, it's a massive point of debate. The ideas floating around in the sources seem to lean towards maybe a Palestinian authority-backed group, but the PA itself needs major reform for that. Or maybe a more technical body, focused purely on reconstruction, probably needing strong international money and oversight. But honestly, the level of political mistrust between everyone involved just makes putting either option into practice incredibly difficult, deeply fraught.
And we don't need to look far into the future to see problems, right? Internal cohesion seems to be fraying already, even with the fighting paused.
That's why that specific incident mentioned in the sources is so telling. The Al-Muhida incident in Khan Yunis, that was October 3rd, 2025. It was basically a clash between Hamas forces and local clans.
Why is a clash like that, the Al-Muhida incident, so significant when we're talking about a possible transitional government?
Well, it signals a breakdown in internal authority, doesn't it? You've got clashes between the group currently in charge, Hamas, and local clans during a truce. It suggests there's already a power vacuum forming underneath. These local groups are maybe starting to compete for control, perhaps over aid distribution points or local security, as the main structure weakens. It means that even if some external body, like the PA or the UN, tries to step in, they'll face challenges on the ground. From multiple groups vying for influence. It's not just about Hamas anymore. Ultimately, for this ceasefire to hold long term, it's not just about politics. It requires huge structural coordination. Stability relies on how borders are eventually redrawn and secured, how international forces, if they come, will monitor the peace. That bit isn't even finalized yet. And maybe most fundamentally, how the reconstruction of those, 193,000 destroyed buildings gets funded and coordinated globally.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean for you trying to follow this? We have this fragile, conditional ceasefire. It stopped the act of warfare, which was desperately needed. It let more aid in. But the cost?
Yeah.
It's immense. Over 67,000 dead. Infrastructure so completely shattered that it threatens to wreck the political transition before it even gets going.
Yeah. The immediate challenge for everyone involved, for the world really, is how do you turn this tactical pause in fighting into something sustainable, a real path to rebuilding? It means you have to tackle the structural problems, the roads, the hospitals, the immediate hunger crisis, at the same time as finding a political answer for who governs a place that's been physically flattened. The sheer scale of the destruction, it actually gets in the way of achieving the political goals of that 20-point plan.
And that brings us to a final thought for you to chew on, something directly from the material we've reviewed. When a place has had 193,000 buildings damaged or destroyed, including schools, hospitals, the absolute core of community life, how does that society even start rebuilding? Not just the buildings, but rebuilding community, governance, Trust. When the physical foundations for all of that have been so utterly leveled, the cost of reconstruction isn't just about money. It's about trying to rebuild human faith and social order itself. That's the enormous task facing Gaza and the world right now.